Episode 70, Interview with Indie Filmmaker Dustin Hawkins. Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So switch on your brain and enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Daniel Grove. I'm a photographer. I'm a nerd. I love movies and cinema, and I'm super stoked about this episode because I got to interview one of my longtime Facebook friends, Dustin Hawkins. How are you doing, Dustin?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm super pumped. I love doing interviews with creative people, especially when it's in a field that's not my own. But I have had a few people on the show already that have to do with film. We've had an actor, a producer, a writer, a music composer, and now I've got you on here, and it's going to be a great episode. So, Dustin, first of all, tell us, where are you and what do you do?
I'm an indie filmmaker in Columbia, Missouri. Originally, I was from Alton, Illinois, which is currently flooding right now, so hopefully everyone's doing really good there. Yeah. But I studied broadcasting in St. Louis, Missouri. Currently working with lots of film students in different states. Right now, I'm currently working on a feature film. And honestly, the thing about being an indie filmmaker is that you're always learning because the technology is always changing, the people are always changing. So I never would probably claim to be a full-on professional in the way I carry myself and the way I hold myself to the different degrees of how things should be done. But it's one of those professions that just keeps changing all the time.
The technology and the industry.
Yes.
And the trends.
Yeah,
and the fads,
the people, the personalities, and it's anyone can, just by watching a film from 10 years ago and watching a film today, can tell just how much things have continued to change.
That thought has crossed my mind lately, just looking back at old films and the new films and the quality and the intensity and the immersion that we get in current movies. What is the film world going to be like in 50 years? It's going to blow my mind.
The only thing I'm scared of is that all of a sudden everything is just super realistic CGI and everyone's just voiceover.
That it's a very high probability that's what it's going to be like.
It's getting closer. I mean, half the time when you're watching your movies, you're watching CGI characters punch each other around.
Or just no background. Everything's blue screen, and they totally put in scenery and everything in the background.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, there's pluses and negatives to that. Obviously, the negative, the fact that you're looking at something very surreal, which maybe that's the point of the film, but then it comes back to the whole, are they just trying to squish them out like a sausage factory? You know? And that's where all the whole cookie cutter term kind of comes from, too, is that you've got all these movies coming out and they're kind of all the same, you know. You feel like you're seeing the same thing over and over again, and then every once in a while a black apple falls from the tree and it's something really different, and you really want to look at it and over examine it, and you enjoy it a little bit more, and you don't know why, and it's because it didn't fall into that same repetition.
I love those movies. They're my favorite. The ones that actually make you think, and the ones that the director and writers actually had to think as well.
Yes, those are my favorite.
It's the best. Before we get too much into the meat of this episode, let's back up just a second. When someone asks you, what do you do? Let's say you meet someone at the coffee shop or, friend of a friend. What do you tell them?
Well, my day job is making commercials. I work for my local TV station in Columbia, Missouri. And I'm a video producer, which goes in really well with being an indie filmmaker as well.
Yeah.
Wow. It's one of those things where back when I was in high school and college, I'd be telling people, I'm going to be a filmmaker. Oh, cool. What do you do during the day? I make tacos at Taco Bell. And they're like, oh, well, yeah. But the fact that I can say I work for a TV station kind of gives me a little bit of weight. And it's sad that people look at things that way, but it's just like if you were a painter and someone said, what do you do for a living? And you said, well, I sell paintings, where people are like, oh, well, that makes sense that you're a painter. But if he's like, I pump gas, then it's like, oh, you paint, huh? You know, it's really interesting that people are very judgy, very judgmental.
Yeah.
But it also, to me, it makes sense to try to work in a field that relates to your career as well.
It does.
Career doesn't necessarily have to be a job. It can literally be an endeavoring art that you continue to work at. but I think everyone has to at some point maintain some kind of a job to continue their career.
Yeah, until your art can carry you, you got to do something to pay the bills.
Indeed, right now I need a
And
tow truck, but
unfortunately, yeah. Well, for myself, I consider myself a full-time photographer now, just because of the amount of time and effort I put into it. It's a full-time job, but I also have a daytime full-time job, which is I am an ATM technician, which is really random and
interesting.
strange. Yeah, I it's a good chance that everyone listening on here has never met an ATM technician.
I have not. The only thing I
Yeah.
think of is all those movies where someone gets robbed at an ATM now.
Well, thankfully, one of the great things I love about my job is I don't deal anything with cash. I don't
Ah,
carry cash. I don't load cash. So, yeah,
you're in the
it's pretty
safe.
sweet. Yeah, I'm in the safer zone. But yeah, so that's my daytime job just to pay my bills and to keep me surviving for now. But I'm definitely heading straight towards the path of going full time as far as income with my photography. But the great thing about my day job and the reason why I love it is because I have so much free time and downtime in between my ATM calls.
Mm,
I can be at Starbucks for 8 hours some days. If I get no emails, no calls, I'm editing, I'm learning, I'm working, I'm networking. Like I'm using all the downtime. And even if I'm driving, which is quite a lot of driving in between stores,
mm.
like tomorrow, I've got about 6 to 7 hours of driving tomorrow to and from.
Wow.
And I'm listening to podcasts. A lot of them are business and photography related. I'm listening to audiobooks, and I'm using that time to better myself as a photographer and a business person too. But yeah, do what you can with your job, but also don't let it hold you back. So I'm
Definitely.
glad you brought that up.
That's great time management there, by the way. And I love your
Oh,
work. Honestly, I really do.
thank you.
It's really neat, and it's taking people's ideas and their own personal art to another level, which is great.
Yeah,
There's nothing
yeah,
like taking someone's hard work and then exploiting it for them,
sure.
and that's
Framing it, making it look awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's great. So that's one of the reasons why I started following you on Facebook to begin with.
Yeah. How did we even meet? Who was it through? A mutual friend or
I saw a few photos
I don't remember.
that you did
Okay.
of some people I knew, and
Oh, okay.
I'm one of those people that I don't just admire a photo. I want to know who took it, who made it, and how they did it. So,
How? Oh, I'm an open book. Anyone out there, anyone listening, if you see a photo and you're like, how in the heck did he make this? You can ask me. I will tell you this is fake, this is real, this is CGI, this is a camera I used, a lens. I don't care.
yeah, I think we had a discussion
I'll
about
tell you.
making lightsabers. Yeah.
Yes, my favorite topic. I consider myself somewhat of an expert on that topic.
You've definitely earned that title.
I actually have a video on my YouTube channel how to make a movie accurate, authentic lightsaber blade in Photoshop. If you want to learn that, stop making bad lightsaber blades. Go watch my video. You'll thank me later.
I think I've
And when I
watched
see
it
a
too.
when I see a badly done lightsaber blade, I'm just like, why? It's so easy.
Uh-huh.
It just drives me crazy. Okay, let's get back on track.
Sure. Yeah.
Some fun bunny trails there. So you're an indie filmmaker. Does that mean you're also doing the writing, producing, directing, and shooting? Like who does these sub jobs?
Okay, that's a great question. For my current project, I am the writer, producer, director, and I did do some shooting, but I currently have a really great director of photography. His name is
Nice.
Kyle Devlin, a really cool
Mhm.
guy that's kind of up and coming. We've been really fortunate to be able to shoot most of this film, almost the entire film, on a red camera, which has been,
Oh,
yeah, that's been
which one?
really neat. The Dragon.
Cool.
And it's been fortunate because with that material, you're shooting a raw material, so you have so much more to work with. Whereas,
It's actually raw. It's raw video format.
yes, yep,
Oh,
yeah, I know it's good. But
how big is 10 minutes of footage in size?
oh my gosh,
or
it's like
or
we just shot over last weekend actually, and I think there was a good hour or so. I remember it was
oh
almost
boy.
500 gigs of
Ah,
yeah, it was a lot.
jeez.
It's no fun how much space it takes up. It's kind of one of those things
A
where it's
lot of
like,
hard drives.
oh, this is beautiful. It's like a really nice car. Ah, it looks so good. But then when you have to fix it, it's like, oh,
And then you're like, which hard drive is that shot
right.
on? I don't
Or better yet, the amount
remember.
of gas it takes.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the job.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So currently I'm working on a feature film. This is my first feature film. The title is Bonjour. And
Mhm.
for people that are having trouble pronouncing it, just think of bonjour, bonjour,
with a
and then to
V.
swap the B out with a V, bonjour.
I was curious about that. I
Yeah,
thought it was Avenger or
yeah.
something.
Well, the funny thing is that it's French for Avenger.
Oh, hey.
It's a bit of a revenge story. It's a thriller
Yeah.
film, which I'm really excited about because that seems to
Hmm.
be not just what the market is really wanting right now, but also what I really wanted was a thriller film. I didn't want to do drama. I'm not really a horror fan at all.
Me either.
I like horror movies, but I don't like gore, if that makes sense.
Mm, yeah.
Like a really good, well done horror movie is awesome. Love it. I sit there and I
Hmm.
pick it apart in my head sometimes to the point to where I don't enjoy it. But and then there's drama, which I'm not a fan of drama. Get enough of that in your real life. Comedies, I will. I knock on wood. I will never make a comedy. I just trying to make something funny in this day and age just seems way too difficult. Just yeah. And I grew up in the '80s, so everything that I thought was funny is offensive now. So,
Yep.
but yeah, I wrote the story. Then I had an editor go through and give me all these great ideas and tell me that I should change things and stuff like that.
Contradictions,
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's
plot holes.
to me. I love it when someone has a different idea or a better idea,
Hmm.
or even just a difference
Yeah.
of opinion. Um, my favorite question to ask people if I don't agree with someone about something, a lot of times I won't say I don't like that. I'll say, why did you do that? Because
Yeah.
I'm more interested in their perspective on why they think it's right or why
Yeah.
it's good than my own opinion of like why it's bad. I in my mind I'm going, that's horrible. Why'd you make it blue? Why
Mm.
did you make it green? Instead I'll be like, oh, why did you make it blue? You know?
Yeah.
And
Tell me a story behind that. I would love to hear
yeah,
it. Right.
it's kind of a positive reinforcement.
I have a very similar perspective when I'm looking at other people's photos and whether they're just posting them publicly for people to enjoy or they're actually asking for constructive criticism. I also like to take that perspective because my way of doing things is not the only way and is not the best way.
Hmm.
And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to assume, I might be wrong, but I'm going to first assume that they actually had a purpose behind what they did. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear why and what that is. Because I've learned a lot that way.
Yeah, me too.
So,
Sometimes I learn techniques and I'm like, ooh,
hmm,
so I'm going to apply that to what I'm doing now. And
yeah, totally.
going back to this particular production, so normally you would have someone completely different, probably doing the writing, the producing, the directing, the
Hmm.
shooting, and I've been lucky enough to have this opportunity to write and produce, and we do have another producer on this project, Boster Castle Studios. Is supporting me right now. It's another
Hmm.
local film production unit.
Cool.
My personal production unit is Retro Hawk Productions.
Right.
More people, I think more people recognize me by that than my own name. I'll be at conventions and people will be like Retro Hawk, and they don't
You
even
got
know
a
what my
shirt
real
that says it
name
on it.
is. You know, it's just
Retro, hey.
yeah, exactly. And I like that name because part of it's my last name, and I like to think of a
Yeah.
little bit old fashioned.
Hmm.
But yeah, this project currently I've been rewriting over and over and over again. You write your story out and it's like, okay, this is what I want my story to be. This is my movie. And then you find out the limitations of what you can do to make this production
Hmm.
happen. So then you rewrite it
Ah,
to suit those limitations. And then
yeah.
sometimes you just see, oh, the heck with it. I'm just going to go ahead and we'll figure out how to do this later. And and then you either regret it or you're glad you did because you spent more time doing and making what you actually really wanted.
What you wanted, yeah, instead of compromising
Right.
based on limitations, yeah.
Exactly.
In a previous episode, I interviewed one of my friends here in San Antonio with me. But her name is Paulina Manso, and she's also an indie filmmaker. And it was really fun talking with her because I've gained a huge appreciation for what she does and what you do, which is wearing so many hats. In the indie filmmaking world, you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to just throw to people that have skill.
Right.
You've got to make things happen sometimes with no money coming in at first, and it's like an investment, and you hope that it'll make money later
Hmm.
once it comes out. And you're using someone else's money and time, so you got to do stuff on your own, and you've got to really be a multi-talented person to get things moving and get things started. And that kind of sounds like what you're doing here.
Yeah, it's definitely a multi-hat position. Even if you
Hmm.
are just directing, that in
Hmm.
itself is a very multi-hat position. And I've been lucky enough to find lots of people that really want to be a part of something. And that's kind of the one thing I love the most about filmmaking is it's the only art in my mind that requires a bunch of other artists just to make one thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It is very unique in that way.
That's the purity of it that I really try to hold on to is I literally have these sets where we'll have like 15 crew members and 4 actors, and
Hmm.
each one of those crew members, they're either working a regular day job and just really want to get into the profession, or some of them are
Hmm.
even schooling for this profession. And
Cool.
a lot of them have a lot of skill and talent, but just haven't had an opportunity to utilize it anywhere because there isn't a lot of local stuff, and you've probably been seeing all the noise about getting films made in Missouri and things like that.
Yeah,
And what's really great though is that it's coming around, and more people in the Missouri area are getting together to make film. And granted,
that's
like
great.
a lot of my productions, nobody's getting paid, and
Mm.
the reason why is because the fact that we are all volunteering so many different levels of skills. You got people who literally have done some productions in LA, and then others who
Mm.
have, barely know anything about a camera, but they understand lighting like it's nobody's business. And
That's cool.
it's really neat. It's that my favorite thing is getting on the set and also teaching. I use all my sets as kind of a learning opportunity, and that's
That's
probably
cool.
something else that kind of separates it a little bit. Is I don't work everyone like a horse and expect them to perform.
You're no James Cameron.
Yeah, I definitely don't expect anyone to outdo anybody, and a lot of times I'll pair people up with other people who are really good at other things so that they can learn, so that the next time they're on set, they already kind of have an idea, and it's just me constantly finessing them
Hmm.
and learning. And then I do have some people who are just they really do. I feel like they know more than I do, which is to me that's the golden rule is to surround yourself with people that know more than you.
Yeah.
And it's the difference between knowledge, talent, and wisdom. Those are all three completely different things.
Hmm.
Some people I've seen never go to film school, never even pick up a book, yet they're really they pick it up like it's second knowledge to them and jump right
Yeah,
into it, and it's
that's
fun.
amazing.
That's part of the fun.
So speaking of getting into it, how did you get into this? How did this all start?
I've messed around with a video camera since 1987. That was probably the first time I actually picked up a camera and played around a little bit. And then I finally started making videos. We started off with old WWF videos, do some wrestling stuff. I feel like everybody was doing that in the 90s, honestly,
Yeah.
making wrestling videos. And I'm a really big Dick Tracy fan. So
Nice.
I did a lot of little detective stories that I never finished. And our camera at the time didn't even shoot in color for a little while.
uh,
We got a color one eventually, but we started off with one that didn't shoot color, or the color was really off. So I learned to shoot without color.
so you were inadvertently doing black and white noir
Right,
videos.
exactly. Yeah. And it was fun. The one thing I really
Yeah.
liked about it was that you really had to think of different ways to express without color, which I feel
Mm.
like that's where all the heavy shadows come in, and
Yeah.
you make sure
Totally
that your
true.
good guys are lit really well, and then you
Hmm.
figure out little things like camera angles, like ooh, if I'm looking up at him, he looks really powerful. If I look down,
Yeah.
he looks
Ominous.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I learned a lot of that. Got away from it for a little bit. A lot of people were telling me that it wasn't going to go anywhere, and I probably gave in for a little while and decided to go into computer programming and
Mm.
insurance. And around 20, I decided to make my first movie that never really went anywhere. We probably spent 2 years filming it, and I probably spent about 4 years doing the effects on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was because we did 50% of it on green screen, which was horrible idea. Horrible
Yeesh.
idea. Though I was definitely a fix it in post kind of guy then.
Oh, before you learned your lesson.
Yeah, that was my royal digital spanking right there. I learned that man, you don't ever shoot like you're gonna fix it in post.
Unless you're ILM or Weta, but still.
Yeah, if I got Walt Disney shooting my movie, then maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
But so I did a few productions, didn't really go anywhere. I moved to Columbia, Missouri eventually, where I joined a organization called Columbia Access Television. And they were a local group that basically allowed people to get memberships and take little classes on how to operate a camera, how to use Adobe Premiere and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I did that, and then eventually I got on the board of directors and was on the board of directors for 6 years. And cool. That's when people started telling me, "Man, you kind of into this. You kind of got a knack for it too. Maybe you should get some education." I was like, "Oh, I think I know it. I think I know everything."
I'm good. I got it.
So I started applying for jobs, and nobody would hire me because they're like, "Well, you got no background in this. You got no education." And eventually, I went to school. Got certified in studio production and Adobe products. And
what year was this?
This was 2007, right around 2007. Okay.
That's right when I graduated high school.
Oh wow!
Not to make you feel old.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. But I finally went to school. I got my certification, and three months before I even graduated, I was directing the news at KRCG, nice. Which is a local TV station in my town. And then after that, I was literally hopping from station to station. I worked there for a few years. I moved over to the city government channel, where I got to really express myself because we were doing like these 5-6 minute videos about local programs and construction that was going on in town and different things to help educate people. So I really got to cut loose a little bit. Then nice. I got back into.
I feel like a news station is probably pretty formulaic, right?
It is. It's
not a lot changes.
No, it's pretty cookie cutter. We get to dance around a little bit. Like every once in a while, we'll get a real creative idea, or they'll let us come up with a creative idea.
Something funny. Yeah.
But most of the time, you've got a 30-second window there, and it's identify the business, identify the need and why you need this business, and then how to contact this business. It's a formula that you pretty much follow for almost every single commercial you do. But fortunately, it's been good in the sense that when I've been recruiting people or talking to people and like, hey, I'm working on this production here, I really need someone that can do this, and they're like, well, I want to do that, but I don't really know much. And it's like, well, I'm happy to teach you. Well, what do you do for a living? Well, I work at a TV station, make commercials. And they're like, oh, okay, wow. Well, then maybe you know what you're talking about.
They take it a little more seriously.
They do. Whereas in high school, I would say, hey, I want to make a movie. Oh, cool. What do you do? I make tacos at Taco Bell.
Well, bless your little heart.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, you want to make a movie? That's cute.
Oh, cute. Don't shoot your eye out, kid.
Yeah. But yeah, that's that's kind of where I'm at now. I jumped around at a few different TV stations. I currently work at the local one right here in my right in my town, and on the side, I do a little freelance work. I did photography for years and years and years, and I feel like that's where I really learned about cinematography. When you're
interesting,
when you're doing video, there's all this leeway, so to speak, but you really shouldn't think of it that way. But a lot of people do. It's like, oh, this shot looks kind of, well, it's okay because it's going to be moving to this. But when you're doing photography, you've got one shot. That one shot has to look good. If more filmmakers kind of thought of cinematography that way, this needs to look good from beginning to end, whether it's a few seconds or 60 seconds or several minutes. The consistency of the art needs to stay in place, and that's where I feel like a lot of people lose it. And that's taken into account everything. As a photographer, things like lighting, positioning. Someone can be in a really great position, but if you're not at the right angle, it's not going to shine.
Yeah. So would you say that photography kind of laid down a foundation for the storytelling aspect of video?
It did for me personally. Learning about photography, and I was one of those weird photographers that never used a flash. I would always...
Oh, you're one of those natural light photographers.
Yeah, it's very natural light. I would, even if I was inside, I would set up lights and have them on. I would, I did not like using a flash. I use flashes when I go to conventions sometimes, but
Hmm.
I'm not a flash fan. And it was good because it taught me more about lighting before I even learned about 3-point lighting, 4-point lighting. I
Yeah.
was learning myself, man, if I put the light over here and the light over there, oh, we got this like really ominous looking uh facial reaction going on here, you
Creepy,
know.
creepy
Yeah,
shadows.
exactly.
So you're saying you use continuous lighting with your
Yes.
photography? Okay, cool. Like LEDs, or what did you have in plan?
LEDs, especially nowadays. I used
They're
to
awesome.
own the really big high wattage lights that would get really hot. You needed gloves to
Oh, yeah,
handle
you could
them.
cook an egg on
Yeah. Oh my
them.
gosh. It's but the nice thing about LEDs is that sets are so much more safer now, in my opinion.
Totally.
Because
Yeah.
you'd have a light set up and you'd say, "Oh, we need to take that light down," and all the volunteers are like, "I'll get it." You're like, "No, don't touch the light." Yeah, I
No.
know, and
Gotta.
I've had people burn themselves, and it's just like I
Yeah, or
said, don't
catching it
touch it.
accidentally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can't do that with
I got it.
LEDs,
Come
really.
on. So early on in your interest in cinematography, even back into your younger high school days,
Hmm.
are there movies that really influenced you or kind of captured your imagination and that kind of got you going, or was it mostly just TV wrestling stuff that got you kickstarted into it?
Definitely, I was definitely a Star Wars, Star Trek kid growing up. Yeah. One
Hmm.
of my favorite movies, though, two of my favorite movies. It's hard to say one over the other.
Sure.
Two very influential movies though that I saw growing up were the movie Willow. I
Hmm.
really enjoyed that one. Um, to me, it was one of the first movies I heard of where George Lucas and Spielberg had worked together. So I thought that was kind of cool. That made me right away want to watch the movie. And I have an over fascination for medieval and magic and all that stuff. So Willow, and then the other movie was Legend, an old Tom Cruise and Tim Curry movie. If
Man, you're all about that fantasy, huh?
Yeah, I love the fantasy. I love it. I can't afford to do it quite yet, but
Sure.
it's definitely on my to-do list for when I actually have a real budget to work with, which is
Yeah.
it's going closer. But those were very influential movies for me. And the one thing I really like about both of them is they're both fantasy narrative, but they're also
Hmm.
both very different kind of movies. The movie Legend almost is like a play. Uh,
Mm.
Whenever you watch it, it's very the sets were all very beautifully built. Everything was done on a soundstage. The makeup
Yeah.
jobs that they did on that, which that taught me really quickly that makeup was very important element in a film. Because when I first started
Hmm.
shooting videos, I never paid any attention to makeup, and then later on, it was like, wow, the difference in makeup in a film really changes
Hmm.
how you're viewing this. I was too much in my own head way back when I was younger to think, oh man, somebody can just look at this and go, yeah, they're gonna look tired, they're gonna look like they've been worn, and no, you could actually make them look dirty and tired, and
Hmm.
bags under their eyes and everything. You said something earlier that kind of triggered a memory of mine when you mentioned Tim Burton. There's a really great quote that I love that he says where it's something like movies are like an expensive form of therapy for me, which is so true. Kind of like the way a painter feels like sometimes they just have to paint, they just have to
Hmm.
express themselves.
That
That
artist brain is a mystery. It's a strange thing.
it is. I really don't want anybody ever up there because it's it's a mess. But I love that quote because it's true. It really is like a therapy. It's
Mhm.
something. It's kind of like whenever, and I mean, when you're doing photography, you've got a particular project in mind, and you don't want to do anything else necessarily until you do that one project. And then when you do it, you
Mhm.
get it done. It's like, all of a sudden, it feels like
Ah,
your brain can relax.
I can move on with my life now.
Right. And then another project comes up.
What would you say is your favorite part of the process of a film creation, whether from the very first idea you had to, the final end? Like what's your favorite part of the process?
The filming process really is my favorite part. I
Hmm.
almost enjoy it more than the editing and sitting down to watch the finished product is
Yeah.
as joyful as it is to sit down and go, it's almost sad because it's like, man, it's really over with. You know, you're watching
Oh,
this finished product, but it's like, we're gonna give this ice sculpture one good spin, and then it's gonna be like, all right, what's next? You know, it's kind of
yeah.
it's almost sad. But when you're on
Hmm.
set and you've got all these people busting their butts, working so hard, and lately I used to do everything. I used to
Hmm.
shoot. I used to work the lights. I used to set everything up. Like it would be me and two other people helping me out. And
Wow.
now I'm working on these sets where I've got like 10, 15 crew members, and it's like,
Awesome.
oh, I still have to remind myself that, oh, I don't have to do that. I can just say, hey, adjust that, please, you know?
Go get my latte.
Yeah.
Go get my
Yeah.
blue
I'm
Skittles.
definitely not a Diet Coke director. But it's
Awesome.
being in the moment where everyone's set up and the actor's ready and calling action and shooting and,
Mhm.
and getting a successful, big high five after every time we do a really great scene. That's the highlight for me.
Yeah.
And maybe it was almost the same way for me personally whenever I would do photography, like
Mm.
actually getting with the person and taking photos and just giving them a little quick glance going, oh, look at that. Oh, wow, that's going to look so good, you know?
It is such a rush and so much fun.
Hmm.
Creating, creating on the spot with a client or with other. In your case, you're not. It's interesting. So I shoot clients who they're paying me,
Hmm.
but you're often in an ideal situation. You're shooting another artist and you're paying them. It's kind of backwards in a certain way,
Yeah, it is.
but either way, the creation process with them is so much fun.
It really is, and it's so many emotions bounced around on set, and sometimes I
Mhm.
feel like I could hear everybody's trains in their head running. The one thing that you immediately have to address with volunteers is don't everybody shout out at the actors, because I forgot to do that the first few times way back years ago when I started directing.
Mhm.
I'd yell cut, and everyone on stage would yell, "Hey, do this differently. Hey, lift your hair."
Oh
Like, whoa,
no!
guys, no, no, no. The
Who's
actor's
the
just like, what's
director?
going on? Yeah, I know. It's like you
Yeah.
got to put on the
Gee.
big hat and say, all right, go, hold on, who's actually really calling the shots here? Who's really making the
Oh man,
decisions?
I've experienced that a few times where I'm photographing usually a younger, like a teenage girl for seniors, or maybe a young adult girl with a modeling shoot, and her mother's there. Oh,
Oh,
I feel like a creeper asking for their mother not to come because I can't really say that, especially if it's a minor.
right.
But boy, do I not like it when the mom's there because she will start critiquing and criticizing and suggesting and just like stop it, stop.
Yeah, I
I'm the expert. You're paying me.
I was really fortunate for the feature I'm working on right now. Actually, we had a scene where a little girl has to sing a song, and she's on camera
Mhm.
while we've got this
Ooh.
big jib. It's like a
Oh
15-foot
gosh.
jib, and it's swinging
Whoa.
and looking at her and stuff. And the mom was so polite, and she never
Nice.
said anything. She just stood there, and it was kind of cold outside, so she held her daughter's coat so she could run in and cover
Uh-huh.
her up every time we yelled cut. But
Yeah.
it was the best daughter mom experience ever, because
Uh,
she never
that's great.
was like, I really think that she would look better if she would just turn around, and little stuff like that, and didn't
Yeah,
have to do any of that. So I got really lucky with that.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm open to suggestions. I'm not trying to be like a photo snob,
Mhm.
I'm the camera master, but at the same time, it can get out of control real quick. But that sounds like a really nice experience.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. That's one of the many things that have happened for the first time for me working on a set. I've worked with kids before for commercial
Yeah.
shoots and things like that, but never in a film where it's so much more demanding that everything they do is exactly the way it needs to happen.
You ever just had a kid just break down and just be a total brat or just a kid's tired or something and it's not going to happen?
uh,
Has that
we
ever
uh,
happened?
I recently did an indie short film called Shutter, and
Hmm.
it took place in the 1940s. So we worked with the local Missouri Theater of Independence and got all these extras. And one of the extras was this real little kid. I think he was, I want to say he was like 5 or 6. years old.
Oh.
So he's on set and he's a little shoe shine boy. So it was really cute. But I yelled cut. And I said, guys, let's do one more. And he was like, okay. So we did it. And then someone else messed up and I was like, cut. All right, guys, we just need to do one more. And the little kid was like, he said one more and we're doing another one. He's a liar.
Oh my God. Did all the adults try not to laugh?
Yeah. People were snickering, but it was just funny because you hear this
funny.
little tiny voice said, he said one more. He's a liar.
Did y'all get that on camera somehow?
Yeah, I know we had a recording of it somewhere. It's one of those things
good.
that I still need to put online. And that's another thing that I do really differently. I know a lot of sets take photos and things like that, but you don't see a lot of it with indie films. And the people working behind the camera just get lost in to the public. They get lost in all the things that happen with a production. So I try to do as much BTS as possible so that all these people can have picture, because Facebook is a big social media networking outlet right now.
Oh, yes.
And
visual.
For people to be able to say, I worked on a film set. Oh, what day did you do that? Oh, Saturday. Oh, what did you do? You know, trying to tell people you did stuff. People are so in disbelief. But when they have a photo or a video of them actually doing stuff, it's like, oh, wow, look at you. You're working and wow, okay, neat. You know, it's just, and it's really good for the people. They deserve that credit.
Totally. I love behind the scenes. I like to show off my own work because I know a lot of my work, a lot of my viewers just don't know how it's done.
Yeah, because you can't appreciate what you don't know.
Yes, but when they do see it, then that's when they do appreciate it because they can see, wow, like you really had that guy jumping off the ledge. You had all these lights around and all this and that. And then the editing, all the layers come in and it just really shows you how the magic happens. I like letting people peek behind the curtain. I know some photographers don't because they feel like either A, someone's going to steal my trick and steal all my clients and I'll make no more money, which is silly. The over competition mindset, which I'm just so over.
Yeah.
Or they think that, well, now my customers know how it's done and they won't really appreciate the end result because now they know it's all fake. And I'm also over that too because people still love my stuff even though they know it's fake. Like obviously it's fake. Although I'm getting to a point where some of my stuff people don't know is fake, and that's real fun.
Yeah, when they're actually questioning.
Yes. Wait a second. Isn't it real? Like I did this is actually maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I did a photo shoot of a girl, and it was based on a dream I had. It was a story about an angel who comes down from heaven. And I made angel wings in CGI. They're totally CGI. They're posable. And I worked my butt off on these wings. I made them super photorealistic. And in the end, they look so real that people were asking me, can I rent those wings from you? Where did you buy those wings?
Where can I get those?
And these are like 12-foot wings on either side. They were huge. And I'd say, why, thank you. Where are they? They're on my computer hard drive in my Blender folder.
That's awesome.
You can definitely pay me, but you're gonna have to do a photo shoot with me,
right?
So that I love fooling people.
Yeah, that's part of the fun, and same thing. I remember when I first started photography, I really was trying to keep everything under wraps and not telling people, oh, I used
Trade
Photoshop.
secrets.
Yeah, exactly. And now really you become more popular by sharing all the toys. Sharing all the abilities and stuff.
You said you use a lot of your film work to educate. Can you tell a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I really was wanting to always get into film festivals, and I found it very difficult to do so. Not so much by the production, but by the content and the people that were involved in making the production as well. So the one thing, like for instance, my feature film that I'm working on right now, every place I shoot, like I shot up in Wichita a few months back now, and the first thing I did was find out what the local film school was and recruit students from that school. And what was kind of neat is you had multiple levels. You had some that really knew a lot, and then other ones that just only knew what the red button on the camera did, you know? And same thing with Kansas City and Independence, Missouri, which I've shot a number of times. And I got quite a few film students from up there. And you had some of them that really understood a lot about one thing, but not another. For instance, my assistant director, I've had the same assistant director for a while now. And when I first worked with her, she was doing lighting. And then another time I would have her run mic. And then
Mm.
another time I'd have her run the slate and call the, bonjour, scene one, take one, you know. And what I liked doing, and the one thing that she's complimented and many others before, is that every time they work on set, they're doing a different job, which is great because they don't want to be able to be a one trick pony. Nobody can afford to be
Yeah.
that anymore. And
Yeah, true.
I know the only way you can really get into this business anymore is by understanding a variety of aspects to it. You just can't know one thing anymore. I actually learned that myself when I first finally got a job at a TV station. When I started, the year I started, they actually fired a lot of the cameramen because they replaced them with robots in
Oh,
the studios.
wow.
Yeah, they have these little robot buckets they sit in, and they have pre-programmed motions and turns. And the people that have been working there for like 25 years as camera people were let go. And I was like, whoa, I thought I was going to make a living just being a camera guy, you know? And that kind of immediately like made something about me. Wow, you really got to be versatile to really make it in this career, whether you're making movies or working in television.
If it seems like it's only at the very upper levels of like high end success, like Hollywood, acclaim, that you really get to specialize and do one job. And maybe a little bit before that. Like when you mention, director names like James Cameron or writers and things like that's the one thing they do, but that's because of where they are now.
Mm-hmm.
But to get there, they probably had to be like you. They had to do a whole bunch of different jobs and find their niche and work their way up.
Well, and it's honestly, like, for me personally, I feel like if you're going to direct, you need to understand all those other aspects.
That's true. Yeah. You got to appreciate, you got to know how the camera works or how exposure and then the acting techniques and all other stuff involved in front of you. Or you won't know what to do.
I mean, it's just like if you're the chief mechanic, you can't tell people to fix this and do that if you don't know that. Well, you got to get that there first before you can do that. And it's the same way on a film
Hmm.
set. You can't tell people,
Yeah.
oh, set lighting up. Wait, the set dresser needs to get in first. You've got to.
Hmm.
Doing those jobs gives you the ability to kind of measure out the time a little yourself, so that you have an idea of how long things are going to take.
Because it's all interconnected.
It is. It is. It totally is. And it really is an interesting thing because everyone's like part of the skeleton that's operating. And
Cool.
if you don't know what all the bones and muscles do, then you're going to have a very, very erratic set. And that's
Yep.
unhealthy. It shows really quickly. I've worked a lot in lighting and camera work.
Hmm.
Cinematography was my big starter there. I didn't trust anybody for a long time to shoot for me. It was like it's gonna take too long for me to explain. Here, let me
Yeah, just
operate.
let me do it.
Yeah,
Move over.
but I've really learned to let go of that over the years, and it's been nice working with people who you can say, all right, you remember that scene in this one movie where you got the shot and it's kind of, oh yeah, 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 okay, because now you can send people YouTube links of stuff, and
Mm.
if you've got a good storyboard or two, which is really nice. I haven't had the opportunity to really do a whole storyboard. I did a photo storyboard one time that
Hmm.
actually went pretty well. We literally went through almost an entire short film. It was a 7-minute film, and we storyboarded the whole thing out with pictures. We just took a stunt double on set, and we literally walked through all the actions so that I could show the camera guy, okay, this is framing for that. This is framing for
That's
that.
cool.
It worked really well, but it was a little obnoxious having
It's a
so
lot of
many
work.
photos on
Yeah.
set. I kind of felt like this is I can see why they do this, but this is like if you have a lot more time.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, what are some projects you've worked on in the past?
So I have a couple of indie films that I've done. One of them I'm really proud of. I don't know if you've ever read the book The Most Dangerous Game.
I have heard a lot about it, but I have not.
It's a really really short book. It was written years ago, and it was, if I remember correctly, it was actually in part of a what do you call it? A media magazine where there's just literally like a bunch of short stories, and this is 1924. The
Oh, yeah,
publisher,
there you go. Short stories were all the thing rage then.
yeah, Richard Connell was the publisher. But yeah,
Hmm.
it was like 20 pages, which was still considered really really short back then. And there had already been a few adaptations of it, in film. None of them
Hmm.
really close to the book though at all. They were all very like the first movie came out in the 60s, and it was weird because you look at the poster and the main thing in the poster was this woman, and there was no woman in the book. So you
Yeah.
could tell they were trying to sell it a different angle there.
Hmm.
And we decided that my coworker actually came to me one day and he's like, "Hey, have you ever heard the Most Dangerous Game?" I was like, "No, I haven't." And then I read it and I was just like, "Whoa, this could make a really good short little movie." And
Hmm.
he actually wrote the script for me. We got together and we ironed out a lot of details in it, and then we made the film. And it was about 22 minutes roughly. We played at a few film festivals. It did all right. It was my first time working with a lot of new equipment, and
Hmm.
there was definitely a lot of learning there. A lot of learning. Much bigger crew. I got to work with some really neat actors. When the film finally came out, I had all these schools requesting it, and right now there's been over 50 different schools in the U.S. that have used the film as a learning tool for something to watch
Cool.
after they read the books.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
That's
it's
great.
something really exciting. It wasn't at all what I expected that to happen with that, but it turned out that way because that's a very popular book that's still read in schools today.
Yeah.
Just because the antagonist is it's very obvious who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, and the
Mm.
direction of the story. It's a very easy story for younger audiences to grasp onto. So with the film, we took that book and squished it down because honestly, you could probably make an hour-long movie out of it, even though it's a 20-page book.
Hmm.
But we squished it down into 22 minutes, and everyone's really liked it, enjoyed it. It's on that's online too. If you're online and just search "Most Dangerous Game" Retro Rock Productions, you'll probably find it. It's out
Yeah.
there for the public to watch now.
I'd love to watch that. And the original text of the story is probably public domain right now, right?
Oh
It's
yes.
just out
Oh
there.
yeah.
You can just read
Yeah.
it.
They there was some sort of I remember reading about the actual film. The film itself is even uh they didn't jump on the licensing correctly with that.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
so you can literally
Oops.
watch the old black and white movie on the internet. It's all over the internet.
Yeah, because it's not copywritten.
Yeah, and it's
That's
kind of a long. I think it's like an hour and a half or so. It's something ridiculous, and it's just it
they
isn't
add a
what
lot of
I
fluff, huh?
pictured reading the book at all.
Sure. I've been reading books that I've seen the movie of or before the movie comes out lately, and I really liked it. Like right now, I just started listening to the book Limitless, which is actually the original book's name is Darkened Fields, and it's
Hmm.
what the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper is made from. Have you seen Limitless, the movie?
Yes, yeah, the one with the
That's an
pill.
awesome movie. Yes,
Yes,
love that
I was like,
movie.
why can't I get
And
those?
I need those, yeah, please,
Right.
for my next project. Yeah, I've always loved that movie. It's probably been in my top 5 since I saw it, and it's really cool reading the book because you get to see the what they have. You get to understand the film adaptation
Hmm.
and why, and sometimes you can kind of see why they had to change things, or it's just creative licensing, but kind of cool.
Usually a
Awesome.
mix.
Well,
A lot of that movie's
yeah,
very underrated too. I feel like
totally.
there's some really neat, little clever cinematography ideas in that film that I even saw and kind of went, "Ooh, yeah, yeah." Just
Nice.
like when he runs outside to throw up, it's like they let the camera just go completely upside down, and it gives
I
you the
forgot about
idea of
that.
how he's feeling, and
Ugh,
it's one
yeah,
of
it's
those things where I
perfect.
feel like, "Oh man, that's brilliant." Yeah, just
Hmm.
let it go.
One of my favorite VFX things from that movie is the infinite zoom that they did in the intro
Ah,
sequence.
yeah.
Remember that?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I love that. So I looked that up. This is a side note. This is for free, guys. This is a little bonus here. I won't charge you for this. But I looked it up, and the way they did that was they had a camera rig with 3 cameras on it with different lenses each, and they were mounted like super close to each other, from left and right.
Hmm.
And I think one had like probably a 35 millimeter lens. Next one had maybe an 85, and the next one had a 200, something like that, like wide, medium, and zoomed in. And so they recorded maybe 15 to 20 seconds of footage from the camera rig on each camera at the same time. Then they moved that camera rig down a whole block in New York. Then they did the same thing. They recorded there. Then they're done. They moved another block and recorded there. And so in post, they were able to do an infinite digital zoom by placing the next camera zoom shot in the center and expanding it. And they linked it all together with, masking and scaling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they were infinitely zooming into, camera 1, 2, 3, and then they'd zoom into the next block down, camera 1, 2, 3, and the next block down, camera 1, 2, 3. Pretty sweet.
It was a neat trick that kind of made you like, whoa.
You can't stop watching.
Yeah, no, you can't.
I can't look away.
It's a great way to pull your audience back in if they were starting to detour a little bit.
Yeah, it's very clever for an intro sequence too. But the story and the what if of that story of that movie and the what if factor of that story, I just love. Anyway, so book to film. It's a fun art of adaptation and seeing what they leave out, especially with Lord of the Rings, things like that.
Oh yeah,
there's no way they can put everything in there, so they do their best.
And they don't. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, this either needs to be a movie or a series.
Yes. And then they're like, wait, we can make more money if we split this third one into 2.
Yeah.
Hashtag Hobbit and Twilight.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there. Wants to watch any of your productions or see your behind the scenes, things like that, where can they go to find you online?
So I do have a website. The website is retrohawkproductions.net. I probably, if you want more current information, though, I would always advise going to the Facebook page, which is Retrohawk Productions, which currently I keep searching it every couple of days. And right now, knock on wood, I'm the only one. So that's pretty easy to find. I also, on Instagram, it's retro_hawk, HAWK.
Okay.
So I'm also on Instagram. Facebook is where I'm most active, and I'm also trying to break away a little bit from Facebook and do other things, just because there are a lot of people out there that don't have Facebook, and you need to find other ways for people to be able to reach out to. I have a YouTube page as well, and the Retro Hawk Productions YouTube page has a lot of stuff on it. If you look under albums, there's lots of videos of behind the scenes. I've literally done behind the scenes for almost every production I've done.
That's great. I think the fans appreciate that too.
It's definitely the people working on it, being able to see, and I like seeing it too, because my face is stuck in the monitor or stuck on the actor. So I'm curious what, who's scratching their butt while lifting a light or something.
What's going on behind you?
Right, exactly. And currently, and just to label off just a few different things, Most Dangerous Game was a really big production that I had done. After that, or before that, actually, I got to shoot for the first time on a Red Dragon camera, a zombie movie called Eat Organic. And
clever.
Yeah, the premises of the movie was that everyone who was not eating organic, eating fast food, the government was slowly turning them into zombies.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And if you want a good giggle, that's a good one to watch, and that one's online as well.
Did Whole Foods sponsor that production?
No. No, but if you watch it to the end, the ending's quite surprising. The one fun thing about that film, both actually used the same main actor for Most Dangerous Game and Eat Organic. Eat Organic was fun because I literally have the main character's name is Logan, and the actor looks a lot like Wolverine. He looks like Hugh Jackman. He really does. A lot of people have asked me, is that stunt double for Hugh Jackman or something? Because Daniel Wise really does look a lot like him. But that was a
Has he ever cosplayed him?
Yes, he does. As a matter of fact, he's a professional cosplayer, which is how I met him.
Dang. Cool.
The one thing I did want to express also is the fact that a lot of my productions are done through networking. For instance, the Eat Organic movie, we had roughly 70 zombies in there. Yeah, there's a really neat drone shot in there actually where he's down on the ground and there's like all these zombies closing in on him, and it's like, wow, it just goes on and on and on. And I was able to do that through our local Necropolis and Fearfest haunted houses. I literally went to the haunted houses and said, hey, I'm making a zombie movie, and maybe we can kind of promote you guys at the same time and shoot this movie. My fight director, Philip Meese, he's a really amazing guy. He had a few connections, and we were able to get permission to use a song from the Black Ops video game.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's the name is totally escaping me right now. I probably did that like almost 6 years ago now, but
Hmm.
we were able
That's okay. I
to
forgive you.
we were able to get that song in there, so it's kind of neat having that in there as well. And then we had some local bands do the music for the credits, and I did the
Hmm.
whole animated credits and everything. We really went all out on that production. And so if you got 6, 7 minutes, that's a good fun one to watch that you can find online
Cool.
as well.
That's Eat Organic,
Yep,
right?
Eat
Yeah.
Organic, and Most Dangerous Game are both online. You can find those easily. There's also a BTS video of
Hmm.
both of those that you can look at. Lots of fun details in there, pictures, videos, and I usually have somebody else do the BTS because
Hmm.
I don't want I don't want to sit there and edit myself talking. To me, it's like I shouldn't be in there at all. It should be everybody else talking. So having
Yeah.
somebody else that's got that neutral opinion says, no, you need to be in there to be saying that, let them make that call. I don't want to make that call.
So, what are your goals? Like, what are you hoping to do? Where do you want to go with this? Down the road.
Well, right now I'm working on finishing my current feature. I'm about
Hmm.
70% done with it right now. We are going to go for distribution with this particular film. This,
Cool.
for me, is going to put a lot of people's names on the map, at least to some degree.
Hmm.
Because that to me, that's when you really get noticed. When you can make all the indie films, but the minute you have one that's out there on the shelves, it's kind of like, oh, okay, maybe I'll talk to this guy a little bit more about making
Yeah.
something else.
Hmm.
And that's where I'm going with it is I want to do bigger productions. I actually want to do a musical at some point. I
Cool.
really enjoy musicals, but I don't know the first thing about it. I would have to hire someone to write the music, to
Oh yes,
choreograph it.
lots of contracting for that kind of shoot.
Yeah, so much red tape.
Dance, costumes.
But that's a goal of mine is to do a musical, and I need to get a few productions off the ground first before I can get there. And
Yeah.
I feel like a time travel thriller might be the one thing that helps.
You never know, yeah. So each project is kind of a stepping stone to the next one. And it's not that you don't appreciate or you just want to blow through this one, but each one kind of gets you a little further,
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of yeah, it's almost each one's more like a piece of the puzzle that you're ultimately working to
Mm,
build, as opposed to a stepping stone so much. While each project
cool.
elevates you a little bit more,
Hmm.
it's those past projects you put so much time in that people also recognize as well.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in using past work, regardless of
Hmm.
its quality, as a reference to the quality of amount of work you're willing to put into something that you're doing.
Awesome. I like that perspective. That's great. So after your current project is completed, do you have anything lined up yet?
I do. I'm kind of keeping it under my hat at the moment.
Okay, okay.
But I do I am planning on doing that musical though very soon.
Yeah.
I will say two things about it. One musical, the other is steampunk.
Ooh,
There's a
fun.
steampunk element to it. Not recreating the wheel or anything, but adding a new twist on an old story.
I kind of like that. Steampunk is an underrepresented genre
Mhm.
in, I guess, in mainstream entertainment. Like, what steampunk movies have made it to cinemas? Like, I mean, Wild West was kind of steampunk.
Right.
It was more like diesel punk in a Western world,
Yeah.
but I can't think of any steampunk movies, which is really a shame.
There's I've seen some big productions, but there was nothing with enough weight to get off the ground. There's
Yeah,
probably
more
more steampunk Asian films than there are
really.
American films. Yeah, there's some
Is that a
really
thing there?
oh gosh, yeah, there's some really neat stuff. But then you're mixing the wire work kung fu into the steampunk,
Oh,
which kind of
oh,
makes it even more interesting.
I gotta see that.
Yeah.
Longtime listeners know I love Crouching Tiger, Hidden
Yep.
Dragon like with a passion. So I need to see steampunk ninjas.
Yeah, steampunk Crouching
That
Tiger.
sounds awesome. Throwing gears through people's heads and
Yeah.
stuff.
But yeah, that's another field that I feel is a little underrated, and I feel doing steampunk also gives you a lot of room to take liberties as well.
Yeah, it does. Because there's just things that you just have to accept in steampunk
Yeah,
worlds. That's just okay.
it's not
You can't
100%
explain
clearly
this.
defined, so
Yeah, and that's okay.
yeah, no, and that's okay. It's okay to not have the answer to that question. There's
It's not like
a
sci-fi.
right, exactly. There's like with steampunk, there's a few defining traits, but there's so much room to add and
Mhm.
change, and you could be as
Yep.
diverse with it as you want. And I like the idea of using that to tell a story, but also have a musical element in there, which I think would be a lot of fun.
That would be really fun. I think the general audience that loves steampunk would totally get on board with the musical. Just I don't know, something about that just makes sense to me. It sounds right.
That's my hopes.
Well, I can't wait to see and hear that. So keep us updated on that for sure.
Definitely.
Well, Dustin, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast and share about your story and your work. It's been a really good episode, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. I finally got to talk to you in person.
Yeah, right. This is what I sound like. That's what you sound like.
After all these years.
Yep. Well, again, if anyone out there wants to see RetroHawk's production, look up RetroHawk Productions on Facebook or on Instagram. Look up retro_hawk and you'll see his work there. And also he's on YouTube and his website, retrohawkproductions.net.
Thank you.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work, and maybe one day in the future we can cross paths and make something awesome together.
Yes, definitely. That's a must.
Well, thanks again and have a great night, Dustin.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks again for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Comment on those posts, and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. If you like this show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find our previous episodes there and listen whenever you want. We love to hear from our listeners, so if you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, you can reach us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and have a great week. Some guys running around in a banana suit.
Oh, wow.
and someone's like, I thought he was supposed to be in a dog costume. The producer's like, fix it in post.
Gosh.